So hello, we've reached the end of the year, guys. I want to give thanks to my subs and visitors who've always been respectful and supportive. And I think it's very important that I do give you all a bit of respect and show my gratitude. I also want to show you my top video. I'm not going to tell you what my top video was this year, but 164 hours of my top video was watched. And I have said to you, it's watch time that is more important on YouTube than views. Watch time is what pays you. And I think it's because people see views on the bottom of videos. They think, oh, views, views, views. And they don't think about watch time. Watch time is actually more important than views on YouTube. And my top video this year, which I won't, it's nothing to do with BAM. My top video was not to do with BAM, nothing to do with BAM. It wasn't a video I made on BAM. But 164 hours of that video has been watched this year, of my top video this year, and over 400,000 lifetime views for the channel so far. It's been going 3 years. Not bad. I'm not popular because I speak my mind and I'm very honest. Not a great success, but these are decent numbers to build on. And I just want to thank all of you who've been supportive and respectful and decent this year. And this podcast, I'm going to be going all over the place. I'm going to talk about AD. I'm going to talk about Chris Watts. I'm going to talk about Natasha Cooper, BAM. It's just going to be all over the place. I'm going to go back and forth. This is not a formal podcast. It's going to be very informal. This is an informal, laid-back channel. And I just wanted to show you what was going on with my channel over the year. My most viewed video on another Watts creator got 164 hours watch time, and I have over 400,000 lifetime views on my channel so far, and I just wanted to share that with you and thank you all. So I decided that I wanted to do an end of year review on how the year's gone, what's Ireland related and YouTube related, and what's been happening on the tubes and on the scene. Who knew that AD and BAM would be taken down, that I would no longer be a friend of BAM, or if there ever was a friendship. And I'll talk about that a bit later. I also want to examine the relationship between Chris and his father, Chris Watts and his father, in this episode, because there's a lot of people who question the reason why did Chris choose his dad to come into the room to confess to over his mother. And I've got my own theory for that, so I want to talk about that, and just about things that have happened in the within the year, whether it be on the news or on the tubes, and so on and so forth. First thing I want to start with and get this out of the way before I really begin is I've shared with you a desire to leave England, and I'm going to tell you what I like about England, but I'm also going to tell you why I want to leave England as well. And I came to England when I was 5. I wasn't born here, but I'm half British. And when I first was coming to England, I thought England was going to look like Switzerland. That was my image of England. I thought it had mountains, that it was going to have lots of snow, and that it looked like a Switzerland poster card with mountains and snow on the mountains. And that was my picture as a 5-year-old of what England looked like. And when I came here, it was absolutely nothing like that. First of all, the one thing that I got wrong is that England doesn't have a lot of mountains. It's not a country that snows a lot. I mean, at least not down here, not in the southeast. Maybe in the north, but not down here. And it has some hills, but it's not a mountainous country. It's really a flat terrain. It's not as mountainous and hilly or snowy as Switzerland. England is beautiful. I don't think it's as beautiful as Switzerland, but England is a beautiful country with a lot to offer. Don't get me wrong, England is beautiful. The Lake Districts, the Cotswolds, the West Country, Dover. There's a lot of beautiful places in England. And one of the things that I love most about England is the food. There's just so much going on on the food scene here. And you've got the famous TV personalities like Nigella Lawson and Gordon Ramsay. Don't be don't be misguided about what people say about the food here. The food here is great, and it's not just British pub grub food, it's international food, Indian food, Thai food, Japanese food, Italian food. The food scene here is amazing. In fact, if I didn't grow up in England, I don't know if I would have ever become a foodie. But then again, I don't know. It's just the international flavors that we have in this country is just amazing. But there are lots of downsides of England as well. One of the things that constantly amazes me about England is the amount of spiders and flies that are in this country. With all the years that I lived in Jamaica, I never saw any spiders. And I'm being serious. I heard crickets at night. We had this beautiful apartment facing the central fountain. And we sometimes would see cockroaches in the apartment. But I've never seen the amount of spiders and flies. This is not a tropical country, yet there's so many spiders here and so many flies. I don't know why. And I always scratch my head wondering why are there so many spiders in this country and it's not a tropical country. I expect to see that if I go to Brazil, maybe. I've never been able to get my head around why there's so many spiders in this country. But that's one of the reasons, because I've been trying to get away from them all my life, and they just follow me around everywhere. And I have no clue why England, that is not a tropical country, that's in Northern Europe, has so many spiders. Now, that's a very insignificant reason. It's a very, how would you call it? It's not a big reason. Yeah, it doesn't carry a lot of weight. It's a frivolous reason. But there's other reason. One of the reasons is that we spend more for public transport in this country than anywhere else in Europe, and yet we don't have reliable public transport. The cost of living in England is ridiculous compared to other parts of Europe that I think have just as much to offer or even more. Now, look, we have Buckingham Palace, we have the royal family, we've got beautiful parks and gardens. Holland Park the Japanese garden in Holland Park is one of my favorite places in all of London, in all of the world. We've got the London Eye. It's a beautiful city, London, but cost of living here is absolutely ridiculous. And there's, Switzerland is a stunningly beautiful country, one of the most expensive countries in the world, but the quality of life is very, very good. I question whether the quality of life is great here sometimes. I was looking at a list of places that people want to live, a top 10 list. And, people in America were voting, where in Europe would they most desire to live? And England came at the very top. And I think that's because a lot of people have a fairy tale version of what England is. And it's not a fairy tale. And, when Meghan came to live here, I don't think she realized what England was really like. But then her reasons for wanting to leave are very, very much different from my reasons, of course. I wrongly assumed that I'm starting this part again after I'm re-recording it. I wrongly assumed when I was a kid that every Christmas Day in England would have snow. And I know that's ridiculous, but that's just what I thought. And, if I'm going to live in a place that has two seasons, it might as well, 2 seasons that, and it can get quite chilly and drafty in this country, then it might as well snow. All this wind and rain, I just find this kind of weather boring and not Christmassy. I would just much prefer snow. The coldest day that I've ever experienced in this country was March the 1st, 2018. I will never forget that day. I remember when I was trying to go into my bag to get my key out to open the door, and my hands were literally burning. It was so cold. And that's the weather I want on Christmas Day. There was snow everywhere. There was a stillness in the air. The skies were clear. The birds started chirping differently. The foxes, they were nowhere to be seen. And the birds that did come out were kind of looking around bewildered. So, I remember my neighbor used to do these great Christmas decorations, and the only snow we'd gotten that year was in December, but it was the early part of December. And by the time Christmas Day had come, there was no snow. So anyway, I'm going to try and wrap this up. One of the most poignant things that have happened this year is AD being taken down. And I've watched the video of, his swan song video several times. You can see that the wind has really been taken out of his sail, and he's bewildered because he thought he was invincible. And I think that Bam thought she was invincible. Bam lost the game. Whatever game she was playing online, she lost. And I think that's part of the reason why she didn't immediately come back, because she liked to throw her weight around and say that she was going to get this channel and that channel, and she was going to do this and that. She had a personal reference number for various departments, and yet look at what happened to her, you know. And I think that was kind of, I think it got to a point where AD really did think he was invincible, and you could see that all of the life had been taken out of his face of the day that he got taken down. And you know, my personal experience with AD has been very pleasant. I've had very pleasant exchanges with AD, but I noticed that when he talked about being taken down, that it was, you know, he never mentioned anything about justice for Shanann and justice for the girls. He always talked about justice for Shanann, justice for the girls, making sure all the people involved are where they should be. But there was no mention of that in the Swan Song video. It was all about money for him. Oh, you know, he's lost this money, he's lost that money, he's not going to get that. And, you know, that's what it is about for AD. It's about money, it's about getting credit, it's about being a superstar. And, you know, he really did think he was invincible. I've got no ill will towards AD. Like I said, my exchanges, you know, the exchanges between me and AD have been very pleasant. But I think he took advantage of the Watts case. And I didn't like his NK project. You know, it's not his job to go looking for NK. And they've said that the case is closed. And that's exactly what's happened. The case is closed, and it's been closed for a long time. So all the rabbit holes that AD took you on, that they were going to get NK and NK was going to be joining Chris Watts and he knows more about this case than everybody else. I hope his supporters now realize that it was all a phantom. And he doesn't know more about the Watts case than anybody else. The person that really knows more about the Watts case than anybody else is Chris Watts. And, you know, when he and Cadle did this interview where they said, you know, other people are going to be joining Chris Watts, it was all phantom talk and fantasy talk. And it was a way to keep you all on his hook. But, you know, it was the right thing for him to go, I think. I think Rumble is a better place for him. And I've been listening to the recordings that Bam sent me. And like I said, I'm in two minds whether to ever upload them or not. I probably will never upload them. And the reason is I've got a bit of integrity. Depending on what happens, I may upload some, but I don't plan to do that right now. And, you know, I started to do a little bit of reflection, and I reflect over and over again when I reflect. And the truth of the matter is, there were times when Bam was very nice to me. And I will never forget, there was a time when I was on her channel and somebody came in and was being very snarky towards me and not particularly nice. And one of Bam's subs and Bam herself removed that person from the live stream immediately. I will always be thankful and grateful for that. I will always be thankful and grateful for how nice her subs were to me when I was in her live stream and part of her channel. However, that doesn't give her the reason to then turn on me later on and make CP posts about me where she's not just going after me, but she's going after Ali, she's going after Mummy Ramblings. It doesn't excuse the behavior in later years. Just because somebody, or in later months, sorry, because I wasn't friends with her for years. I was only friendly with her for a few months. But just because somebody was nice to you once doesn't give them the right to then turn around and behave like that towards you. And so if I ever do release her recordings, I won't be, because that's one of the things that's on my conscience. You know, she did tell me certain things in confidence, and regardless of how it turned out between us, and then regardless of how, you know, she's not a very nice person. That's what ultimately what we've all discovered. But regardless of that, she was nice to me at one time. She did tell me things in confidence. There were good times. You know, I used to have conversations with Bam in the morning or early afternoon, and she was always a little bit full of herself, at least a little bit. You know, there's always this me about her. You know, she was all about herself ultimately. But there's people like that in my family. I could take that. But we would have conversations, and she seemed rational and reasonable. And even though there were a lot of things that she said about the actual Watts case that I didn't agree with, she's allowed to have her opinions. But then later she would go on her live stream and she would behave the way she ended up behaving. And I'd think, wow, these are two different people. The person that I spoke to earlier in the day is completely different to the person on this particular live stream. And I don't know if any of you ever saw it, but there was one time, she had this big support going for AD. And if you were part of her channel, she basically wanted you to support who she supported. And she would say things like, we support AD in here. I made it clear to her that I would never support AD, that I would never donate to him. And I don't think she liked that. And I really could never really understand, after all the things that she'd said about AD that were not positive, why she would want to support him. But there was one time, and I know now part of the reason was because of her absolute disdain for the R's. But once I was on her channel and, she was talking about AD getting compensation, she was absolutely fixated on the idea that AD was going to get compensation and that AD was a sympathetic figure, which I didn't agree with. And I said on her channel to her that I don't believe AD will ever get compensation. And she snapped back at me. She's like, but you don't know that. She was really irritated that I'd said that because it didn't go with her agenda. And there was a bit of a silence. And then she said, AD's going to win. He'll win. And, I figured from there that she had an agenda. I don't know if that was in the later part of our friendship. I think it probably was. And I think it came to a time when she realized that she could not control my mind like she may have done other people, and that I was going to speak my mind. And I don't think she liked that at all. But I will always appreciate the kindness that her and her subs showed me in the beginning. But, what I see of certain behaviors of certain people, I don't want to be part of it. I just don't want to be part of her circle anymore. Because of the behaviors. It's almost like she created an environment, and the people who were in that environment want to continue in that same, they want to continue their behaviors, the behaviors that they had when they were on her channel. They want to continue with that behavior now, and I'm not interested in it. So that's what I do want to say about that. And, I listened to her talking about how much she supports AD and how she's got AD's back, and she would say, we support AD in here and I'm going to be AD's star witness. You're going to be a star witness. Well, you and AD both got taken down. So what kind of star witness are you going to be? And she would say either Lady Witch or Voodoo was going to be another star witness for AD. And the stuff that she talked about and the way she talked was complete delusional fantasy talk, because she would get fixated on an idea. And she would try and make that idea real. And she would try to convince you of her belief and her idea. And if you didn't go along with it, then, it would irritate her if you didn't go along. She couldn't convince me that AD was going to get any compensation. She couldn't convince me that AD was a sympathetic figure. And I think that's one of the things that she was annoyed with about me. There were other things as well. But I think, her subs were very good at keeping their mouths shut and not telling her, at least not in her live stream, what they really thought, just letting her talk. And I just wasn't one of those people. And like I said, I make no excuses for my relationship with Bam. I participated in some of her drama for a few months. I did. I'm not pretending that I didn't. I tell you, I've got voicemails. I've got many voicemails that she recorded and sent me. I was friendly with Bam for a time. But, I think I also left at the right time. And whether she blocked me or not, that's her business. I wouldn't have known because I never went back to her channel after a certain time. And to be honest, I don't care, because I actually think that there's something very wrong with her behavior and how she treats other people and how she sees other people. I really do. And so I don't care how she feels about me now. But, I make no excuses of the fact that I was friendly with Bam, and I'm going to be very open and honest about it. And if I ever do release the recordings that she sent me, I'm going to show you her in all her facets. The times when she was moody and annoyed with people for no reason. She didn't like salty. That's a secret that I'm sharing with you, and I can prove it. I'm going to show you the times when she was saying nice things to me as well. If I do ever release her recordings, I will let you hear all facets of her personality. So anyway, on to Chris Watts. Some people talk about, one of the recurring things, well, there's a lot of delusions and fantasy talk about the Chris Watts case. And I heard a creator say the other day that NA should be looking over her shoulder. NA is looking after her kids, looking after her health. Because NA, Weld County, are not interested in NA, and she will never be where Chris is. Never. NA is a loving mother, and she was a loving friend, and she was concerned about her friend, and she helped Weld County. She will never, ever be where Chris is. So anyone thinking that NA is ever going to be part of the equation is very, very mistaken. And you can mark my words on that. Same thing with NK. I remember when AD would say, "Oh, she's drawing up, they're going to get NK." It's all fantasy talk. It's never going to happen. And the only person that will ever be held accountable for what happened is Chris. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's the truth. Even if one day he decides to say, "Oh, NK was involved," unless he has proof of that, nothing is going to happen. Weld County are not interested in anybody else. They're only interested in one person and one man, and he's in Wisconsin. It's a man in Wisconsin. That's the only person that they were interested in. No one else. But there are people who talk about the fact that Chris chose his father over his mother to speak to have in the room, to confess to, that he chose his father over his mother, and have questioned why that is. And I think when you see the video of Chris in that room with his father, you understand why. Ronnie is very cool, calm, and collected, and has a very, he doesn't get emotional. He has a very cool, calm, and collected presence. And that is the reason why Chris wanted him there and not his mother, because Cindy would be over emotional. She'd probably be talking over him, and she'd probably be very hyper as well. Whereas Ronnie Watts is more of a gentle soul. He doesn't get animated. He doesn't get over emotional. He keeps his emotions inside. And that's the reason why I believe, yes, I do believe that he was closer to his father in lots of ways, and they bonded over sports. But I believe that's the reason why Chris chose his father over his mother to confess to. But I don't believe his first confession, and I don't believe any of his confessions. I believe he did it all, but I don't believe any of his confessions. But, his father is a lot more of a calm, cool, collected person who doesn't get over emotional and will listen. And I think someone like that is who Chris wanted to be there with him, not somebody like his mother, who would have probably spoken over him, would have been overhyped, would have probably been very emotional. That's the type of person. Sometimes when you want to tell somebody something, whether it's true or not, you need somebody who is going to be cool, calm, and collected. And I think that's the reason why. And some people have said, "Oh, he's more likely to tell his father the truth of what happened because he was close to his father and he respected his father." And I actually don't believe that at all. I think that he thought that he could get one over on his dad. And I think that's what he did. I think on both of his parents. I think both of his parents still don't want to see him for what he really is. But I think the parent that he would most want to confide in more would be his father. And because of Ronnie's nature. Ronnie is a very calm person, and no matter what you tell him, he has that calm, cooling presence. And I think that was more desirable to Chris. That was more desirable for Chris to confess to than somebody like his mother, who would have just been all over the place. So, because a lot of people bring that up, why did Chris want his mother there? No, why did Chris not want his mother there? Why did he want his father there over his mother? And I think it's because of Ronnie's gentle, calm nature. So well done to you if you've reached this part of the podcast. I want to get back to making my soups and stews, and I've made all kinds of soups over the winter in previous years. I make matzo ball soup, which is dumpling soup, and I make all kinds of dumpling soups. I've made seafood soup or stew, cioppino, oxtail soup, chicken soup with corn, potatoes, dumplings. That's my hand you see in the photograph in the bottom left. I've made beef rib soup and all types of soups. I even make tomato soup. I like soups. I'm a big soup and salad person, and I like curries and I like stews as well. So I'll be getting back to all of that over the winter. I want to wish everybody a happy new year, happy 2024. I won't be going out because of the weather. My mum lives around the corner. I won't be going to her place either. I'm just going to stay in and watch everything on TV. It's just with the weather being windy and the various storms we've had, I've seen people stranded at various train stations. Eurostar cancelled. Sometimes planes aren't even flying and getting cancelled. I just can't be bothered with all of that. So I'm not going anywhere for the new year. I also want to mention something quickly about Natasha Cooper and Gaza. I've been very affected by what's going on in Israel this year. And I feel sympathy for both Palestinians and Israelis. Okay? Because I've had people come to my channel and saying stuff about that. I have sympathy, particularly for the children that have been caught up in all of this on both sides of the aisle. I don't prefer one side. I feel sympathy on both sides. And it's obvious that this is going to be an ongoing thing for many years to come. That's just my opinion. I also want to say something about Natasha Cooper. Now, I've tried to be very fair about Natasha Cooper. I've tried to be balanced and objective when I speak about her. I think she's very engaging. I think she's charming. She knows how to tell a story. She knows how to engage an audience. People are very fond of her. But my final conclusion on Natasha is that it's all about paper for her. I just clicked on a recent video of Natasha Cooper, and we all know what happened to Natasha Cooper this year. She would make channel after channel after channel. I recently clicked on a recent video where she was talking about starting a fund, and she wanted 20% of that fund to be reached in a certain amount of time. And I clicked off immediately after I heard that. So Natasha is all about getting the green, getting the paper, and that is my final conclusion of her. Ultimately, it's all about that for her. And I think that's what it was with BAM as well, to be honest with you. It's just that people have a different way of obtaining funds. Some people say they're starting a fund and it's really going to be used for themselves, to use for themselves. Some people, they say that they've got unique content and put their PayPals in their chat. This is what BAM did, saying she's got all these qualifications and intelligence, and putting a PayPal link in every in every live stream. That was her way of doing it. And, people have their different ways of getting. And that's my final conclusion about Natasha Cooper. Yes, she has some charming qualities, but ultimately it's all about the paper for her. So anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful 2024. I hope you have a wonderful start to the new year. I hope you're all good. I want to thank you for listening and thank you for watching. And I really appreciate the support that I've gotten this year. Thank you very, very much and take care.